And good afternoon, good evening, everybody. This is Sean. With me, as always, is Andrew for another review and another verses. And this week we will be doing the Jurassic Park 3. Does it stand up to the original Jurassic Park series? So let's find out.
Dun, 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 dun.
So there we have Jurassic Park 3. I just all week watching the Jurassic Park series. I had Peter Griffin going through my head going nah, 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 nah. I have to play it. I have to play it. I hope that was okay. I didn't run that by you first.
That's perfectly fine. Do you want me to tell you something that once you hear it, you can't unhear it?
I think I do.
So my good buddy who I used to live with, and I'm sure you remember Jeremy.
Yeah.
He always talked about the Jurassic Park theme. And he's like, the problem with the theme is that to me, it's just singing. It's Jurassic Park. There are dinosaurs.
There's somebody who does something about who does a song. It was on like not SNL, or it was on. No. There was. I'll have to find it. There's a TV show called 8 out of 10 Cats, where comedians, really famous comedians here, have a bit of a panel show. And they always have. Oh, no, sorry, it's Countdown. They have comedians who do a game show where you have to, answer word-related questions and do math. And they always have a comedian sitting on sort of the panel, who does a bit of a shtick, during the bit. And they did a song similar to that with that same premise. I'll have to send that to you. We'll have to find that at some point. But yeah, Jurassic Park 3. So I'm curious because I hadn't watched that film in a while, and so because you were the one that suggested this. So what was your motivation? What were you thinking when we were jumping into this?
I thought it would be like a Superman 4 of the Jurassic Park series.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And when was the last time you saw it? I mean, was it fresh in your mind?
I had never seen it.
Never seen it. Okay. I had seen it before. It's one of those films that was, and I don't know if this is a bit of a commentary on how good or bad the film is, but I hadn't realized I'd seen it a few times. And when you mentioned Jurassic Park 3, I had actually forgotten that I'd seen it quite a few times.
I won't say I should amend the record slightly in that I'd seen like pieces of it here and there a couple of times, and I'll say one of the things I remember it coming out vaguely, and it was one of those sequels that came out. And, looking back on it, it's really, 8 years worth of time? Because I think it came out in 2001 and the first
2001,
yeah. Yeah, the first one came out in 93. And that's really not, you look at like, it's not really that crazy. But at the same time, I think at that time, maybe because it was the period, so much happens in your life between the ages of when the original movie came out. That was the summer I was turning 15. No, 1993.
Oh, you're talking about the first one.
When the original one came out,
yeah.
It was the summer I was going to turn 15, and I hadn't done it yet. So I was 14. And by that time that one came out, yes, exactly. I was like 23 years old. And that's a period in your life, if you think that covers high school and college. You know what I mean? I was out of college probably when I probably just graduated when Jurassic Park 3 debuted. And so it felt like it was like a real Johnny Come Lately sequel. And the other sequel that I remember feeling that way about when it came out and thinking to myself, wow, they're doing another one of those, was the last Star Trek The Next Generation movie, which I guess was Star Trek, was that Nemesis?
I haven't watched many of the Next Generation films, and I don't remember them, so I may not have even seen them.
Right. Well, there was this one that came out, and it was 2002, and the show had gone off the air in 1994, so it's the same 8-year gap. And I remember thinking when it came out, I was like, wow, isn't this sort of like way after the fact? Or remember the X-Files. There was an X-Files second movie that came out that again felt like, gee, they waited an awfully long time on this, right? And so anyway, when Jurassic Park 3 came out, I remember thinking two things, that it had been a long time, and so it felt like the moment had been over for quite a while for Jurassic Park in terms of being able to, sell tickets and be an event, kind of like a blockbuster event, tentpole movie, whatever you want to call it. And then the other thing was that, at least in the brief pieces that I saw, I remember thinking it looked cheap. Like they had really slashed the budget quite a bit. I will say that when watching this, I did not get that impression particularly when I watched
on 3.
this.
So you didn't feel like it was a budget production. It was well invested in.
Well, except for the opening sequence is just so remarkably fake looking to me. Like where they're in the, where the kid and his, like that. Like I thought I was laughing because I thought here we go. This is like a 2000s version of a really cheap, Canon Films. We got the rights to Superman way too late, and now we're going to throw together Superman 4. And so, and it felt like that. I was like, oh, this is what this is going to be. But after that opening sequence, it never really felt as cheap looking again. It seemed to hold up all right.
I just want to jump in because going back to your point about, it was a bit of a Johnny come lately. And what I was reminded of, because I had kind of a similar thought, because I remember Jurassic Park 2 was extremely forgettable. I didn't like Jurassic Park 2.
I despised that movie. I've still only seen it the one time. I should probably look at it again.
Yeah. I liken Jurassic Park 3 to Rocky Balboa. And the reason I say that is Rocky 5. If you were to ask me if Rocky 5 exists, as somebody who's from the Philadelphia area, I say no. It never was made. I don't know about it. That film was never made. They just went to Rocky Balboa. And Rocky Balboa to me was like, we really fucked this thing up. We need to do it again because we can't end it that way. Yeah. And that was kind of because the way, for me, just even the setup, the framework, before we even jump into that first scene, I was excited. I remember when I first saw this, it was quite exciting. You had Sam Neill back in it. You saw Laura Dern early doors. They were returning back to the islands, and it was, it felt like it was, we're back. I can kind of get this Jurassic Park gratification and that was my initial sense. But I agree with you. That cloud thing was a bit sort of, I don't know. It was just a bit lazy. I like the idea, but
I did like the idea. Yeah. Although that would have been an ideal time for the Pteranodon to show up. You know what I mean? Like it kind of felt like a mismatch because the whole thing of Jurassic Park 3, even in the logo for the film, right, is the shadow of or the pterodactyl or Pteranodon or whatever, the flying one.
Find that actually.
I'm
going to keep going. I'm sorry. I'm going to find that logo and pop it on the screen.
And so, that's what they were kind of selling is here's something. And it obviously part of it speaks to what they probably were not able to accomplish, because digital technology had come a long way in 8 years, especially those 8 years. So I think it was kind of trying to say to the audience, okay, here's a dinosaur we probably couldn't have convincingly done in 1993. We're going to do these now. And then you set up this opening sequence, and maybe, looking back on it, because now, of course, it's 20 years on.
Yeah.
And I'm really, for the first time, sitting down to watch the whole thing. And maybe what they were doing was that maybe that opening sequence was meant to be an intentional tease, audiences are going in expecting to see these pterodactyls or whatever, or pteranodons, and then here's these people, whatever you call that. That's not jet skiing. What is it? Paragliding. Yeah. They're paragliding around the island, and maybe it's meant to be sort of like a bait and switch, are they coming? Are they coming? And then no, they don't. And maybe that was even effective in the moment. I don't know. All I know is that this time, as I'm watching it at home on TV, I'm like, man, this looks cheap. This is about where I'm at.
I just think it's the idea is really good because I think you make a really good point that the idea is we don't want to just throw the dinosaurs that we haven't seen in 20 years back onto the screen. We want to. It was almost like a Jaws kind of effect where you're only seeing a tip and. It almost as if they were like, man, dinosaurs are really big and we haven't really done much with dinosaurs in the water. How are we going to have them sneak up or unveil themselves without actually showing themselves? And somebody in the back room was like, let's just do a bunch of mist, just a bunch of mist and we'll just call it good. And I think the problem I had with that scene is there was a part of me as a logical person that thought, are they making the assumption or the insinuation that the dinosaurs can control mist? And it was almost like they were going to create this mist and trap the boat and then take out the boat and there you go. And it just was, it just felt a bit just sort of, I don't know. It just didn't, it worked. The idea worked. I love the idea with the hang glider and the boat being taken out and the kid and the father going. I thought that was a great start from that end, but I agree. I felt like it was a bit sort of meh.
I think your Jaws comparison is very apt because I do believe that's one of the opening not the exact opening sequence, but one of the opening moments, let's say in the first 20 or 30 minutes of Jaws 2
Yeah.
is,
Yeah. I
is with the
didn't even
water
connect that.
skiing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and by the way, I'd like to go back to your Rocky Balboa analogy, if I may, for a minute, because I think it's
Please. I
interesting.
thought you may want to comment on that.
well, while you were saying like this to you is the Rocky Balboa, and by that I think what you're saying is that this is the good one, the makeup one. It's maybe not as good as the original, but gee, at least
The attempt of a good one. I'm not necessarily. I'm not saying that Rocky Balboa, and that's another show altogether. I'm not giving any commentary on my view on how good Rocky Balboa is. I'm talking about the impetus for making Rocky Balboa. That's what I'm likening it to.
I see. Because I looked at it, and it's funny, I have almost the exact opposite react. I mean, like, not opposite, but like what the reaction I would say is like, that's why, again, I was right back at Superman 4. It has a very Superman 4 vibe to me, which is to say that it does the following things, right? So you're right. Sam Neill is back and Laura Dern is back. Well, if you think about Superman 3, where, they made those first two films and then they wanted to do a third one. So they felt like, I guess, and I think reasonably so, that the Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor thing had been played out. You did it over 2 movies. So now what are you going to do? So you introduce, and, if you're familiar with the Superman mythos, there's a million characters that it might occur to you to go and grab, like Brainiac or the Toyman or Dark Side or yada yada yada, right? What do? They invent some weird, somewhat dashing but not exactly villain played by Robert Vaughn, and they mostly turn it into a Richard Pryor movie. And Superman 3 is its own. Superman 3 we could do an episode about, because each one of those movies has their own sort of flavor of, I actually really like the first one. I think the second one is still very good, but the third and the fourth are both total disasters in their own different ways.
Yeah.
But the third one, anyway, third one got a lot of heat at the time.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons it got a lot of heat, besides because it's total departure from the formula or whatever you want to call it from the first two movies,
the franchise, I guess.
Right. And then sort of making it a Richard Pryor movie, which is, yes, a bizarre choice, other than I think it was like the Salkind sitting around saying, well, what's popular right now? Well, we got Superman,
I was about to say that.
Well, Richard Pryor. Let's get Richard Pryor. Great. Now we'll throw Richard Pryor in the movie. And I think Richard Pryor, by the way, himself was a big Superman fan, so I think he was excited to be in the film. But then the other piece of it, when they go to do Superman 4, the reason why they got a lot of heat for Superman 3 was that, as much as the most memorable sequence of that film for anyone who's seen it is the evil Superman sequence, where Superman, gets exposed to the kryptonite and starts turning mean, and then he winds up fighting himself, good Clark Kent versus evil Superman. Yeah. And it's sort of it is by far the most interesting aspect of that film. That sequence took a lot of heat because Superman evil, a lot of people felt that wasn't appropriate for children, the way that he was mean and suddenly nasty to people and making passes at women and all kinds of stuff. So then they come back with Superman 4, but of course it's done by a totally different studio for a cut rate, 25% discount of or really a 75% discount price is what it looks like, so it's 25% of the budget of the original. But who is back? Gene Hackman is back. The tone is kind of back. Margot Kidder, she's in Superman 3, but she's got like 2 minutes at the beginning and 2 minutes at the end, and otherwise she's kind of written out of the film. So she's again part of the milieu. So like all the elements are back, but somehow it doesn't quite. And that's kind of what I was thinking. Jurassic Park 3 has that feeling to it to me, that like, well, okay, here's Sam Neill, here's Laura Dern, here's we're back on the island, we're bringing the band back together, and yet it does feel kind of. I still was laughing at a lot of it. I was laughing at a lot of it. So
I think. I don't know that I necessarily would equate it to be the same, because when I view, let's say, Superman 4, and I look at Jurassic Park 3.
I will interject one thing before you finish to say, I want to be clear. I actually like Superman 4, and I like it significantly better than I like Superman 3. But having said that, continue. So it's not necessarily an indictment to compare it to Superman 4.
No,
I mean, a lot of people will hear that, but it's not.
Because I kind of, for me, I don't know that I had the same excitement watching Superman 4 that, you know, we're back, because, you know, there was a 2 and a 3, and 2 was decent enough, you know, it was a decent movie, whereas Jurassic Park 3 was coming on the heels of really a not a very good Jurassic Park 2, and it just had that feeling of nostalgia, and that we're getting this, you know, all of the pieces are in place for a really good film early doors. So I was trying to look at it as if I hadn't seen it again, and for me, that's why I didn't feel quite the same. I felt like we've got the ingredients in place, and I think adding people like William H. Macy, I thought, okay, you know, we've got some good actors in this film. You know, we have the you know, the big plane, the guns. You know, there's people that are we're gonna shoot our way through. You know, they're not gonna shoot their way through. But it's all the pieces were in place. But I think everything just seemed really, as far as the, you know, just kind of moving on to how the film unfolds, just the script writing and everything just seems so lazy and quick. The film's only an hour and a half long.
That's actually one of the things that I like about it. I will say, you know, if I'm saying on definitely in the plus column, one of the things that always drew me to it. Well, I don't know why I never watched it, because I always thought, you know what? I mean, the hour and a half kind of spoke to cheap to me, because like Superman 4, also an hour and a half, not coincidentally, right? Where like a full half hour shorter than the previous installments. And I don't know why exactly short should necessarily mean cheap, but I guess it implies that. But I think that that's also, like, when you're dealing with a movie that is, let's face it, there's a formula involved, right? This is a very formulaic kind of thing, right? And at this point, everybody who's going to go see Jurassic Park 3 has at least seen the first Jurassic Park, and probably both of them. And they know what the deal is. There are dinosaurs. They're on the island. They're eating, you know, they've run amok. Like, you're not going to spend as much time building up the exposition, building up the sense of like, oh, there could be dinosaurs on the, you know, like all that suspense is out the window. So rather than fill that time with something else, they just cut it. Which is actually not such a bad thing, I don't think.
I don't disagree with that, and I have no problem with it being an hour 25. And I actually, you know, I agree with the sentiment. I just felt like with what they filled the time with, I felt like it was just kind of, and this, I realized this after the fact, so I'm going to sound smarter than I am. But when I finished the film, I was reading today that the script was unfinished when they went into filming. Yes. William H. Macy was not very happy about that. No. He was happy with the product at the end, but they were still unfinished, you know, pages on the script that they were kind of, I don't know if they were ad-libbing, but they were writing as they went, and you could kind of tell that it was okay. So here's the whole storyline: kids stuck, parents desperate, big check on plane, get kid, come home. That's the whole plot, really. Spoiler alert! I should have done that in advance. That was the whole plot. And then it's like, okay, add dinosaurs. We've got a film. Bada bing, bada boom. Profit. Sure.
And I agree. And yes, I mean, I think you can't talk about this movie without talking about the fact that they were shooting it effectively without a script. And in a lot of ways, what it really feels like is a collection of deleted scenes that have been strung together. Like, you know, I mean, honestly, having read the novel, Jurassic Park years ago, and The Lost World, when it came out, and I haven't read either one of them in 20 years, so my memory, of course, is not sharp. Yeah. But I certainly remember reading the Jurassic Park. There's a very memorable sequence where the Tyrannosaurus is chasing them downriver on the island, and there's a waterfall involved. And the reason why I remember it so well is because one of the things they do to get away from the Tyrannosaurus is go behind the waterfall, which is the first time it ever occurred to me that one could do that. Like, that you could be looking at a waterfall and get around behind the water. I was like, oh my God, that blew my mind. And then there's stuff in The Lost World, which I read it once years ago, and I honestly don't remember, but I know that one of the things I did not like about the movie The Lost World is that the movie sticks with the book for maybe the first half of the film, but everything that happens in the back half and all the stuff that I found most annoying, I think most people, like, I get it, Tyrannosaurus Rex stomping around San Diego is kind of fun in a Godzilla sort of way, but it didn't really feel like it belonged in the same way, and none of that is from the novel. So I think, like, a lot of these action sequences that you see in Jurassic Park 3 are things that were in the book in one form or another, or that were prepared or scripted for the first two movies, and for one reason or another, either were not filmed at the time or couldn't be filmed at the time, whatever. And so, you know, they had this sort of leftover material of exciting action set pieces. So they, you know, throw together a quick plot about why are we going back to the island to rescue a kid. Sure.
Yeah.
And that's really all you need.
I think that's what separates it from being, a really good film. And I don't think, not to, jump to the end. I don't think it was a bad film actually watching it again. I don't think it was awful. And there's a lot of action sequences in it that were really good. And I like that they evolved the dinosaurs from what they've learned. And, one of the things they did was they added feathers to some dinosaurs or changed the coloration because of what had been discovered in, I think, the 10 years after no, it wasn't 10 years. It was 93. So the 7 years after, they actually had made some discoveries about these animals. So I appreciate the actual action sequence and the set, the fact that they were filming in Hawaii and the whole set of the film, I thought was phenomenal. It made me feel like I was watching the original film in a way.
I would agree that it's really, in many ways, it's not a bad movie insofar as the action sequences sustain are still interesting and they're doing good work with the actors. And the only thing is that it is honestly, how to say this, it's one of the most action-packed films, I guess, I've ever, there's hardly a break. Once they get to the island, there's no time for anything. They're trying to develop, they're trying to give you a little, character development between William H. Macy and Tia Leone as the broken up husband and wife who are maybe going to get back together, but they're literally having these conversations in the interstitial seconds between being chased by dinosaurs. It's really ridiculous.
This would be the last thing on my mind. Like Tia Leone's like, he's working out. You've just been chased by Spinosaurus, and you're just you're taking a moment going, yeah, you've been swimming, haven't you there, Pally?
Yeah.
Maybe we need to get together. You would, and that is something that I noticed that now that you said that there was a lot of these people were on an island in which everything was trying to eat them at some given moment, and there was no safe space, and they're just sort of having these casual asides.
Yeah.
The only time I give that the okay is the kid who survived on the island, which I'm willing to accept that. He found a little water tanker and built a little sort of Swiss Family Robinson setup in there. Fine. I can live with that.
The thing is, I think that they can get away with that in this movie precisely because it never stops. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you stop and think about it at all, it becomes what? Why was this bunker in the middle of this place? And it had cans of whatever they were eating.
Well, I think he went. So I think he went. That was a water. So because I never picked this up the first time, but he made a comment about it that I've been living in a water tank or a water truck or whatever it was, a hollow water truck that was left there by the theme park transporting water or whatever, and it was on its side and it was sealed, and he had gotten his food and stuff he didn't go far from the facility where they had food there, so I think he had stocked it up and that was his safe space, which I can accept. It's we're talking dinosaurs, so I'm not going to nickel and dime that.
Sure, if I watched it a second time, I don't know that I could accept. But the first time through, everything's just happening so fast. It's okay, whatever.
Great. They found the kid.
Yeah,
there was one thing in the film that was quite controversial, which surprised me a little bit, and I think that there's certain things that fans are a bit harsh on. Is the Spinosaurus versus T-Rex battle? But I don't know if you read about that. That's quite a controversial thing.
What is controversial about that?
The fact there's a few things. One of which I understand. The Tyrannosaurus is like the franchise in a way. It's the mascot.
Of course.
And the Spinosaurus dispatches of the T-Rex in short order, early doors. So here's your franchise. I'm gonna fuck that shit up, and I am the new franchise. Which, to be fair, I didn't even realize he was on the logo. So they've kind of, there's some foreshadowing there. But Spinosaurus was bigger, and I was listening. They did have a paleontologist who was advising, and he said we wanted to find a dinosaur that was bigger, that was more predatory, because he felt the Tyrannosaurus Rex was more of a scavenger. Now and the thing is, we're nickel and diming here. I really don't care about this, but the Spinosaurus apparently is more of a seaside creature. It was a bit like a crocodile. It would do well by the water. Its teeth weren't necessarily big. The teeth were built to catch fish that were slimy and slippery, and its jaw wasn't particularly strong, but it was kind of strong. And they weren't very smart apparently. Whereas the Tyrannosaurus is a very muscular animal and by all means intelligent, and is is an animal that is built for tearing other, not mammals, but other non-seafaring creatures. And the whole premise, and the other thing, which I think was the stupidest argument, was they didn't live at the same time. You know, they weren't in existence at the same time, which is a load of shit because we're watching a film about dinosaurs existing in modern times. So you can piss off with that whole thing anyway.
Yeah, that have been recreated in a lab. So I mean, sure, you know, like
so. What I read was, is it feasible that if the fight was in a jungle or in sort of, you know, in the center of the island, then the Tyrannosaurus Rex would have a massive advantage. If it was near the water, then the Spinosaurus would have the advantage. But that was apparently a big issue. And if I'm honest, I wasn't that fussed about it.
Yeah, I that didn't honestly, that barely registered with me. You know, on even the fact that it was a Tyrannosaurus Rex losing to a Spinosaurus, and that somehow represented a passing of the torch, you know, in the franchise from this dinosaur was a big whatever. I was like, okay,
yeah,
you know?
Good enough for me. It was.
I mean, again, I was more amused at the sort of the very obviously afterthought attempts to create character development by like having these characters discuss things, you know, for 30 seconds and have expository dialogue about what's going on and between them and relationships and this and that while they're like being actively hunted.
Well, it was painfully obvious when they were like crossing the so towards the end, and it's this film is a combination of really weird dialogue with really good action sequences, and it's when they came across the first pterodactyl, which is exactly what you're talking about, because it's the Sam Neill crosses the bridge and he goes into the cloud, and I think this is what the films in Jurassic Park does well. He goes into the mist and we don't know what's happening. He gets over there, calls them over, and the son goes over and he's like, Mom, you know, I've lasted this long on, you know, I'm fine. And then he starts across and William H. Macy's like, yeah, you know, kind of like, this is our son, you know, let's talk about him growing up and becoming a man. No, you're being chased by things that want to kill you. This isn't the dialogue you're going to have. You know, this is like, we're developing this mother's worried about her little son. And it's just very sort of contrived. It's not, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I was having a good time. I mean, also the thing that I think that they really hammed up in this film that made me laugh a lot was like the Velociraptors now seem to be having entire conversations with one another about like stuff in Velociraptor is.
I thought that was kind of cool, though. I will say, and this may be me showing my hand of being a bit simple-minded, but I thought that was a nice little touch, if I'm honest. I like because there are, you know, dolphins, you know, apparently have quite a complex language. So I'm willing to give that a pass. I'm okay with that.
I'm at a bit of a disadvantage because I rented the film a week and a half ago and watched it, and then I have not had an opportunity. Funny thing is, I actually, this is a total aside, but I was thinking of re-renting it. I didn't get a chance to, but I was thinking, because first of all, I had to rewatch the original Jurassic Park because I hadn't watched it in a little bit. And I ran into 7-Eleven and they had Jurassic Park there for $4, so I bought it. I was like, oh, sweet, you know. But
bargain. That's because no one has a DVD player anymore.
I suppose so. I mean, I still have mine, you know, it still works. I have one in the computer too. So I have my, I do have Jurassic Park now, and I should go get Jurassic Park 3 actually, because I actually did enjoy the film, certainly much better than the second one, which was, as you say, like the total disaster. But in any event, having said that, the third one still had its, I don't know, something about the way that the Velociraptors were, like they were trying to imply that the Velociraptors, this is the part, my memory is now a little, having only seen it the once, but I felt like they were trying to imply that the Velociraptors could have really sophisticated conversations with one another.
They literally said that, though. They literally said that, and this is just in the beginning of the film. He actually alluded to, so the foreshadowing was, we think that they are way more intelligent than primates, and they have a complex language. And they realized that when he created that 3D print of the vocal cords of the Velociraptor.
Which he then uses later in the film, of course, to like talk to them or something.
The only thing I would say that I like the whole, because I like the whole mystique behind the Velociraptors being as intelligent as they are, because they are, you know, descendants. Well, they are not descendants, but birds are descendants of you know, dinosaurs, and these dinosaurs specifically, and birds are highly intelligent. And I kind of like that whole touch. And that was one of the things in Jurassic Park that was so cool, the fact that they were trying to you know, that clever girl, that scene where the hunter is hunted, And that was probably one of the coolest scenes in the original Jurassic Park, and they've taken that another step further. So I can appreciate that. But what I didn't like
for
is,
me, that's one step. Like at work, they're just on this side of plausibility in the first one, where the Velociraptors, are demonstrated. Yeah, I mean, because they pushed that point in the first one, how that the Velociraptors are so clever, and that they're really highly ordered, intelligent, et cetera, et cetera. This movie, it felt like they went like all sequels, they had to do more than the last one.
Well,
but the problem is with that is that they used to have to start making the Velociraptors almost comically intelligent.
well, I think we do align on this, because I thought it was really good up until the last raptor scene, where there was the eggs and they wanted the eggs. I can live with the eggs, but then there was the point where these animals decided, we're just going to be happy enough with the eggs. That was very nice of the people. So we're going to just take the eggs and go. This is a food source, a very easy to they were eating the shit out of these things earlier. They were doing that before the eggs were an issue, before he even kidnapped an egg.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden they're like, you know what? That's really nice of them. This is what they were having their dialogue about. Why don't we just get going? And they just walked off. And that was the point where it got a little bit for me.
Yeah, and then the movie just stops because, like off screen, I guess Laura Dern called the
military, and they rocked up.
Yeah, and they just show up, in force off Costa Rica's, on a possession that's not belonging to the United States or something. The movie just you get the feeling that they were like, well, we did all the scenes we wanted to do with the dinosaurs, so we're done.
We're out. That was something, because I remember there was a point, and this is where the film isn't great. This is the quintessential Saturday afternoon. I'm doing paperwork and it's on the TV, and I'm going to stop.
That's an excellent description. I like.
Yeah. So and it's to me, that's not a bad film. That's a film that I want to keep on in the background because I like all the dinosaur shit. But the way they ended it was because I was looking at my phone. I think I was reading about the film while I was watching it, and I wasn't worried about missing anything. And I remember looking up and going, "Oh, the military are there. We're wrapping this thing up already." I just read one article, and we're already wrapping this sucker up.
Yeah, you get the feeling that the studio sent the military to stop it going any further over budget. All right, that's it. This is done. Shut it down.
Steven Spielberg, executive producer, was like, "Listen, I know we've got like another 5 weeks, but I've got the military coming in. This is the only day they have, so we're just gonna, whatever you're at, just call it a day. Spinosaurus loses. We're done and dusted."
Yeah, all that stuff felt very. I mean, the ending stopping as quickly and as abruptly as it does. Stuff with the Velociraptors, the things talking to each other, I thought was like a little bit. The dialogue, let me put it this way: all the dialogue, whether it's the dinosaurs' dialogue or the people's dialogue, I found to be funny, unintentionally so. And this is what I mean. I enjoyed the film. In the end, I actually really did enjoy the film.
Yeah.
Not like I think that the first one was really quite good, better than I even remembered having watched it again.
Yeah,
over the
but
last
I think that's
day
the
or
whole accoutrement to it. I think that's they did a good job. I think when you have the set design and the investment in the recreating the dinosaurs, just that whole thing makes you feel like you're watching a continuation of the original film, unlike the second one. And I think that earns it some mana. It earns it a bit of relief.
Maybe what we should have done was talk about the second one, because honestly, that was one of my most disappointing. I have to say, I remember going to see that in the theater. That kicked off what I still consider to be the worst summer of movie going ever. I just was like one disgustingly, as far as I was concerned, bad movie after another. And that was sort of the centerpiece horror of it. I remember, I could tell you at the time, it was like a real run. Speed 2, which was just, I mean, you should have known that I should have, as an adult, looking back. Speed is a great movie, right? But it's a one and done premise, right? You can do that once.
That's it.
The idea of
balls to do that twice.
Yeah, to move it to a boat, like that's going to improve anything. It is. I mean, the very fact that Keanu Reeves refused to return should have been the absolute tell. Totally ruined Jason Patric's career. It's amazing that Sandra Bullock survived the experience. So Speed 2 is, a disaster. What else came out that summer? But I mean, the Lost.
Let me find a list here. I'm going to find what they Jurassic Park 2 released date was 97. So what films released in 97? Let's see if this is true.
The best one, there was one I saw that I liked, and we'll see if you can guess it.
So let's go through the list here. So I've got 1997 in film on Wikipedia. So I might as well share my screen here. Let's do that. Let's have a little fun with that. So we have Titanic came out, Men in Black, Tomorrow Never Dies, Air Force One, As Good as It Gets, Liar Liar, My Best Friend's Wedding, The Fifth Element. So these are the highest grossing.
Fifth Element is one of the is I believe to this day the only movie I ever walked out on. But I will say that I walked out on that movie for reasons that were not entirely about the film.
So if I were to go down this list, okay. So I'm just going to give my commentary, and then you give your commentary.
All right.
Titanic, fine, big commercial success. Yeah, whatever. I'm not a big fan of it, but I can see why people like it. Men in Black, I thought was very good. Personally, I think that's a very good film for its time. Tomorrow Never Dies was shit. Air Force One, it's a very serviceable Harrison Ford film. It's cheesy, but it does the job.
I did not see that one in the theater.
That I saw that in the theater, and I thought it's when you're 16 or how it would have been. So at the time, actually 97. So I would have been 20 or 19. I'm not that complex of a creature. It was a decent film at the time, and I'll keep it on in the background again. As Good as It Gets, I thought was overrated. Liar Liar. Yeah, it's not good, not bad. My Best Friend's Wedding, never saw it, probably never will. Fifth Element, I haven't kept it on TV long enough to watch it. I usually change the channel. I haven't seen that in the theaters. And The Full Monty, I've never watched, and I can't see myself watching it. I mean, how would you go down that list?
Well, now let me see. When I say that 1997, it's funny that we got on this subject because when I say 1997 was bad, I'm talking about movies I went to see in the theater because that was the height of my movie going days. I had a job, I had a bunch of friends, and so you had those two things. So what are you going to do? You're going to spend your money doing something. We weren't 21s, we couldn't go to the bar, so going to the movies was something that we went and did quite a bit of.
So we've got some films here that are all more a bigger list here. So things like The Devil's Own, that was out that year.
Yep, I like that movie, but I did not see it in the theater.
It was that's a decent film. Rainmaker. I don't know that I've seen Rainmaker. Matt Damon. Batman and Robin. I've never seen actually. Good.
Oh no, sir.
Save that one for another time.
Well, then we should. Well, you go through the list and then I will explain.
So Jackie Brown. I mean, it's Tarantino. I never hate a Tarantino film.
Yeah, it's not. It's really one of his weakest efforts.
Con Air is comically bad. Con Air is in that.
You and I. Did you go to the drive-in movie theater with us to see that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Okay.
Con Air is one of those films that it's the same as The Rock or Face Off, and these are all in the same genre of films that are. I don't know how they were so popular at the time. Thinking about them now, Face Off specifically, but Con Air was just like, you watch it now.
I know Face Off is a major bugaboo of yours because I watched that with you.
I like watching it. I like watching because it's so bad. Because my whole thing with Face Off was like, so they catch the guy that they need to get some information out of, and they ask him, and then they ask him again, give us what we need, tell us what we need, and they he's not telling us, and then they're like, all right, you're gonna have to cut your face off, and that was like the next natural progression in the film Face Off, and it's like, man, that is just this whole thing is just a big load of shit at that point onward. It just like for me, it's almost like computer technology in the early 1980s in TV. It's just everything about it is wrong. But that's my view.
I see. Well, here's what I remember of the summer of 1997.
There's some good films out this year, my friend.
That's not. Listen, I didn't.
Devil's Advocate's a very good film.
Yeah, I didn't see every movie made in 1997, and I didn't see every movie that I did see. Every 1997 movie I have seen is not a movie that I saw in the theater when it came out. This is when I said 19. I'm remembering, and this is the way this went. In fact, 1997 was the year, if you'll recall, of the Star Wars reissues. That's when
Yeah.
they reissued those 3 Star Wars films. And then it was just the year I was the most excited for movies. I'm one of the few people who did see Austin Powers in the theater.
I did too. There it
and
is.
and that was funny, that was fine. But I
That was-
remember this run of movies that I was super excited to see that were just one after the other terrible. And it started with The Lost World, Jurassic Park. Then I did see Gone Fishing and Con Air, which were horrible. I saw them in a double bill at the old drive-in movie theater there, where the Target is now in Warrington.
That is punishment.
It was.
It's
I mean,
the worst double billing you could have ever chosen.
It was horrible. We saw Speed 2. That was just a nightmare. So bad. I was so excited because, of course, I love. And again, that's the lack of sophistication. It's for some reason at 18, I had some expectation that Speed 2 should be a good movie. Now as an adult, I'd be like, there's no chance that's going to be a good movie. You can't, But anyway, saw that. It was horrible. Batman and Robin, horrible. Because Batman Forever, I kind of was okay with. And actually, I think that movie on review, we could have a whole episode about that. Let's say that. I do think that movie's better than people remember. But Batman and Robin, listen, hey, Batman and Robin, nice to see you, and filled with stuff like that, right? Then what else? I did not see Face Off in the theater, so I don't count it as part of the run.
Yeah.
I think it was finally Event Horizon I certainly saw in the theater, and good Lord, that was terrible.
That actually, I remember when I read the premise to that film, and cast is decent enough. I thought this is going to be good, and it was
Neill, your hero.
To me, I'm not a big Sam Neill fan as such. I think the Jurassic Park films, that's like in Jurassic Park, I was super excited when I saw this film that he was in it, and I thought he was one of the best pieces in that film. I thought that character and the way they moved his character to a bit more jaded, a bit more almost like an Indiana Jones type character, was I think a nice progression in that film.
Well, fair enough. Anyway,
that's my opinion.
I don't really even remember it that well, to be honest with you. I saw it in the theater and I remember thinking it was bad.
Oh, Event Horizon, yeah, that was not a great film. No.
Oh, okay.
No, I was talking about Jurassic Park.
I see.
Yeah. There's the films you saw. You must have had a bad run because
I sure did.
There are some really good films that came out.
And I'm actually looking at the list of the good ones, and which I can get to in a moment. But what broke it for me that year was Men in Black. That finally was a good movie. It was fun. It was enjoyable.
That was yeah.
In terms of now, of course, back then I was prone to go to those kinds of big films. And by the way, I want to throw in here my own defense. In trying to look this up, there is an article on Den of Geek called The Troubled Blockbuster Movie Summer of 1997. So I wasn't the only one. The subtitle is The Summer of 1997 saw a Batman film, a new Jurassic Park film, and a Speed sequel lead the charge. What could go wrong?
Yeah.
I wasn't the only one who felt this way. But looking at the list of stuff that also came out that year, Titanic, Gattaca, Donnie Brasco, Good Will Hunting, LA Confidential. I even like The Fifth Element. I used to count The Fifth Element amongst that, but again, I didn't give it a fair chance. The Spanish Prisoner, which I actually saw in the theater. These are good movies. And I also am a fan of The Devil's Own. Although Air Force One I think is silly, I did see it and I do enjoy it. I agree with you. It's it's a perfectly serviceable Harrison Ford action flick.
Yeah, it's what you expect. It does, as what they say in Britain is, it does what it says on the tin. And that's what Air Force One is.
Correct. So I mean, I have long, held a grudge against the summer of 1997 movies.
Yeah,
and I am not the only one apparently who did, based on this article from Den of Geek. Having said that, yes, I mean clearly, I'm looking at a very narrow sort of personal experience when I say that, and a particular type of run of movies. I mean, to be fair, we're looking at this in hindsight with the full body of work, and he may be looking at this from the perspective of what was anticipated at the time. Films like Good Will Hunting, being what they are now, coming out in 97, probably wasn't on the radar of, this Goodwill, this Matt Damon, Robin Williams film, that wasn't a blockbuster necessarily. It turned out to be a phenomenal success after the fact. Yeah, but I think the budget, I'm sure that's one of those movies that, still gets talked about for budget versus return. I'm sure that
Yeah.
made a lot of money for a lot of people because Ben Affleck and Matt Damon were nobodies at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
'Cause there's 97 has the example of, for me, a good version of not Con Air, but Con Air is in is sort of I guess genus of films, and it's on the lower end. And the
Yeah.
film The Jackal came out. That
Movie
year.
starring Nicolas Cage. That's the way I like to think of it.
Well, Nicolas Cage. I would contend, in the right role, is a very good actor. He's a very good actor. So there was a film.
We can have a debate about that sometime.
Well, the Charlie Kaufman film.
Oh yes,
that was a really good film.
I hated that movie, and I know which one you're talking about.
It was the one where
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
No, that was a different one. It was existential or whatever. So Charlie Kaufman writes a film about him not being able to write a film. Nicolas Cage plays Charlie Kaufman, and he writes a twin brother in the film who is also he's a loser, just decides to fall into writing film. And he takes all of the stupid courses, online courses that people commercially sell just to, sell an amazing film.
I saw this movie. That's not Eternal Sunshine. Yeah, I know
Eternal Sunshine's with Jim Carrey.
You're right. I know. I saw the movie you're talking about. I expected to like it, but and then I watched and I said I should have known better because Nicolas Cage is in it, and I remember really disliking it in the end.
So Nicolas Cage for me, that for me was a good role for him. I think for me, and you have to like this film. You have to like this film. I'm sorry, you do. National Treasure. You have to like that film. He was very good in that. Oh my! I've heard
it's good.
National Treasure is what I tell people here, and they get excited here in Britain when I talk about this. National Treasure is a biography of every school trip we've ever been on. It is, and in the film, it is such a perfect, fun, enjoyable Disney film, and the sequel is, I'd say, decent as well. It's not like earth-shattering. It is a film you and your wife will sit down and it'll make you happy. And Nicolas Cage does a good job of carrying it.
Adaptation is the movie that you're
Adaptation. Thank you. Yes.
And it could well be that I would like National Treasure. I'm not discounting that possibility.
You know what? I think we have found our next review right there.
Wow.
I think we have. Would you be up for a National Treasure run next week?
Sure, why not? I would.
So the premise next week is, and this is your challenge.
No, resolved. Nicolas Cage is horrible.
Is Nicolas Cage? Does Nicolas Cage help carry National Treasure? Is he good? Is this the film? But I would say Raising Arizona was sort of.
I will give you that. The Raising Arizona is the good Nicolas Cage movie.
I think he can be a good actor. Yeah, but there's films like the worst example of Nicolas Cage, which is so. Hey, can you, Nick? Can you work in this film and just be Nicolas Cage, the Nicolas Cage actor? You know, the guy you always play, and that was Casino. And that was like the Nicolas Cage character, like to a T. And it was, such a terrible film.
I'm not even sure I've ever seen Casino. I feel like I have.
If you and your wife are gonna have a few drinks one night and want to hate watch something, that is the film.
That will never happen.
So just looking at I think we need to sort of. So next week let's come back to that. I think next week I want to do National Treasure.
All right, National Treasure.
I want to review National Treasure, and I want to do a was it good, because and I more for you. So to the viewers out there, this is going to be more for Dixon. Dixon, not the biggest Nicolas Cage fan, but he is from the area this film pays homage to. Will Dixon like this Nicolas Cage film?
Oh boy.
I think this is going to be a good one. But moving on from that, I think we need to really give a versus here, because we're kind of doing not a versus. I don't think this is a versus, but does Jurassic Park 3? I think this is the question. Does it represent the Jurassic Park franchise well? Would you agree that's the question we should be asking?
Yeah, I mean, no. I think is it a good, and is it a Is it a sequel that delivers the goods that the audience who came to Jurassic Park and loved Jurassic Park and wanted some more Jurassic Park, came to see. And I think, yes, it does. I want to say one other thing about Jurassic Park 3 that I have not gotten to yet, which is that it almost, but then doesn't, which is a shame.
Yeah.
It almost does something really, I thought, interesting. At the very beginning of the film, for some reason, Sam Neill's character, Alan Grant, is going to speak at some kind of symposium or other. Yeah. And, of course, all anybody wants to ask him about is Jurassic Park. And he's like, and he, and okay, it's a mildly amusing little gag. Pretty predictable.
It was fine.
But when he does finally answer somebody about the dinosaurs that he saw there, the quote unquote dinosaurs that he saw there, he pointedly says something to the effect of like, those monsters are not dinosaurs or something, or implies that heavily. Yeah. And I think that's a really, there would have been a very interesting place for it to go, because if you think back to the first film, what they do, and of course we know that this is nonsense and it couldn't really work in real life, but let's run with the premise that, okay, we've got dino DNA and we're able to sequence 92% of it or something like that. But there are gaps and we got to fill those gaps with something. So we filled it with a frog. And that's the way, and that is how, in fact, that's what underwrites the notion. Although I don't think the final film makes it. I guess there is a line where they eventually make it somewhat clear that that there are certain kinds of frogs that if the population is either too male or too female, will spontaneously change genders. Well, and that's how an all-female group of dinosaurs that are being put on this island can figure out how to breed, is because some of them switch gender spontaneously, and the notion that you're supposed to put two and two together is that's because they use some frog DNA to fill in the gaps. But philosophically, what this means is 92% of a Tyrannosaurus Rex a Tyrannosaurus Rex, or is it a new creature that looks like a Tyrannosaurus Rex and has many of the behaviors of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, but is in fact a completely new, completely different creature with its own sort of genesis and evolutionary track and path. And you could say the same for all the other dinosaurs on the island. And I think that would have been a very interesting sort of thought to kind of pursue through the film, but then they didn't finish the script, so they never could.
that was my, and that you actually, I'm glad you touched on it, because that was the scene where I felt like they got really lazy, because I felt like this film had the capability of being a 2-hour blockbuster, incredible, compliment to the original film, almost like a perfect continuation. And it just sort of walks you down, shows you that path. And it's like, we're not going to go down there, but just want to show you how good it would have been. It could have been really good. We're just going to go down this kid thing and then, run away from dinosaurs and it'll be great.
Well, and I want to say I don't know that the fact that they didn't finish the script should be given as an excuse for why they couldn't get this done, because a movie that was nominated for Best Picture didn't win it, but was nominated for it in 1993 or 4, and is really good. We watch it today; it's still very effective. You can tell that there are some little holes, but that probably are attributable to the fact that when they began shooting, they did not have a finished script. Yeah, and that is The Fugitive. But The Fugitive is really, really well done. Yeah. So
I need to watch that again, because I don't recall the holes in The Fugitive necessarily. The thing is, the film is so good in my mind. If you were to ask me just without even looking at it again, I don't even think about that shit. I was just engrossed in the film when I watched it.
There's really only one that bugs me, but I could either tell you or we could leave it for another time.
I want you, and I want to keep. We'll do. I promise the viewers. Anybody who's stuck around this long, we will. If you're enticed by that, let's save that little nugget for when we do a Fugitive episode.
Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt on your Jurassic Park 3 point.
No, but that's. I think that's where I saw that there was. I just felt like this film had the pieces in place to be really like it was good in my view. It's good, but it was like I want to make sure I say it in that voice. It's good, right? But it wasn't. I felt like it had the potential to be almost as good as the original, and that's the only piece that let it down. But it's 100% serviceable.
Well, I don't know that it's hard for me to say it ever could have been as good as the original, because most of the original
almost as good as what I said.
Okay. could it have been almost as good as the original? That's sort of an interesting question because I rewatched the original Friday night and Thursday night, mostly Thursday night and a little bit last night.
Mm.
And then I was reading some of the reviews of the original at the time, and I was surprised at how negative they are. Because when I watched the original, I mean, not that they're negative, but they're not as praising as I would have thought. And I watched it this time. I was like, wow, this really is it's a solid movie. It's really well done.
Yeah.
And I actually I remember going through a little period where I had a little bit of a tude about Jurassic Park, and I had talked myself into the idea it's not really that good. But I was watching it, I'm like, well, I don't know what I was thinking of, because like I'm watching this is really pretty well constructed. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
And all the little character things that don't happen in Jurassic Park 3 because they're just throwing lines around, while in between being chased, and there's not really like you get those little moments where things can stop, and they've also set up and pay off certain character things reasonably well, like that Alan Grant doesn't like kids or doesn't get along with kids, and then they set up that he winds up being the one who has to run around and take care of them, so you don't have to have a lot of dialogue, he can do it through gestures, through just the way he has to interact with them as a result of what's going on to help pay that stuff off. I thought it was all really well done. And now I've lost my point.
We're getting old. We're getting old.
Yeah.
I think you were talking about how there was.
Could it be as good as the original?
Yeah.
That's it. Here's the thing: the original, what really drives, for my mind, especially the first 30 minutes of the film, is not repeatable. It's that you notice how vague, and that's one of the little plot holes of the original Jurassic Park. That if you think about it too much, like. He is apparently Richard Attenborough's character, whatever his name is.
Hammond. Yeah.
John Hammond is able to somehow get Ian Malcolm, the lawyer, all of them seem to, and of course Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler, all of them seem to not understand what the park is supposed to do. Early. Sam Neill's character, Alan Grant, asks him, what kind of a park is this exactly? And of course, he doesn't directly answer the question. And then eventually they land the helicopter, they get in the Jeep, and then you get that great big reveal scene, which is just tremendous scene where they see the dinosaurs for the first time. And it's clear from watching the actors, all four characters are supposed to kind of for the first time be really seeing a dinosaur, and not just be like, oh, wow, I'm seeing a dinosaur, but not have expected to have seen a dinosaur. There's a slight difference between those two things, right? It's not that there's like, oh, wow, this guy's telling me he did it, and no, he really did. That's amazing. It's that I had no idea I was going to be looking at this. Now, if you think about it, that really works. That scene is tremendous, and it helps put together the first half an hour of the movie. It's a bit of a plot hole because how could he really have gotten these people this far without explaining what it is he was doing?
Is it that they didn't expect to see it, or was the idea that it was such an unbelievable sight, even though that they had some understanding of what was there, that it still blew them away?
It's very clear in that scene that none
I need to
of
watch
them,
this again.
Yeah, and especially when you're looking at Dr. Sattler, Laura Dern's character, because she's looking at a leaf as they're coming up to the dinosaurs, and she's like, Alan, this leaf shouldn't be here. She's like, this thing has been extinct for 500 million years. I don't understand. It's clear that she's like mystified that this little plant is here. Yeah. And then, he turns her head, and then everybody's reaction is just like, oh my God, oh my God. And it's not like, listen, imagine if you and I were in a car with some other guy who's like, listen, I've built a park and I've reanimated dinosaurs and they're really, really alive. Come with me. What would be the sole and only topic of conversation as we made our way
where
to
are the dinosaurs? Take me to the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be, yeah. That's a really good observation. But yeah, if your whole focus in life is studying and researching dinosaur bones, and somebody says, I've got a bunch of living dinosaurs safely secured in a compound, I would like to show you them so you can endorse my park. The second you would be off the plane, you'd be like, let's go. Let's
Yeah,
just
right.
go look at. And you'd be like a dog looking for the dog park out of the car window, just like, where is this thing? Instead, they're just like, a brontosaurus of all things sneaks up on them, or whatever it is.
Brachiosaurus. It's a
Brachiosaurus. I don't know.
I'm a 5-year-old, so now I know all the dinosaurs.
So I think it's time for us to give our score on Jurassic Park. I think I'm pretty clear cut on my score. You want to go first on this one? I've been going
Jurassic Park 3, I would say it was better than I thought it was. It still had its laughable moments. I was looking for so bad it's good. And there's a certain threshold you have to meet. And at times it was, in fact, that for me, where it was so ridiculous that I was laughing and having a good time. But it was also not really a bad movie, certainly much better than the second one. So I would say a solid 6.
Yeah, I was debating on 6 or 6.5. I think 6 still represents a decent enough film. I was going to lean towards 6. So I think we're in complete agreement on Jurassic Park being a 6, and that's a respectable score. I think 6.
I think so. So for that kind of a movie, yeah,
100%. So next week, National Treasure. I think we're going to go into that, and we are going to ask the question: was it a good film? Disney National Treasure, Nicolas Cage, and your favorite actor in all of creation.
Sean, I'm gonna throw out a possible, alternative proposition. Maybe
Please.
National Treasure is a good movie. I've never seen it, so I'm going to find out. Despite, rather than because of the presence of Nicolas Cage.
Does Nicolas Cage help or hurt National Treasure? I love it.
It's kind of like the counterfactual of any of the, would Jurassic Park be better or worse with Harrison Ford? Which, by the way, we didn't get into the other aspect of that debate, which to me, Jurassic Park is the last 80s movie, has all the elements except Harrison Ford. But, Steven Spielberg is there. John Williams is there with the music. It's made like an 80s movie in a lot of ways.
Jeff Goldblum.
It has Jeff Goldblum. It has
that
longer camera.
Is he more 70s than 80s, Jeff Goldblum?
No, I'd say he's 80s. The Fly is 86. Earth Girls
that is.
88.
I don't think you need Harrison Ford if you get Jeff Goldblum's a big ticket guy.
Jeff Goldblum's arguably more 90s than he is 80s, because really Jurassic Park gets in the role in Independence Day, and then he's in 2 big blockbusters in a row, so he winds up as the lead of the second one.
Jurassic Park 2. Forget, that reminds me. I feel like a good versus would be Men in Black versus Independence Day.
Oh, that's not even a contest.
I know, Men in Black, it would be.
Men in Black is so much better than Independence Day.
Well, we already finished that one.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't even know how. Let me count the ways that Men in Black is better than Independence Day.
Well, let's save that if we do decide to go there. But next week we're going to be doing National Treasure. It's everybody who stuck around this long. Please do subscribe. We're still waiting for the first subscriber. If you are the first subscriber, I will say your name. The first thing we talk about next week will be the first subscriber, and we are getting people. We've had about 7 hours of watch time on 4 videos. That's not bad.
I want our audience to know that plenty of better people than them have really been dying for for their name to be on Sean's lips. So
that is fiction. But that's what we talk about. That's what we talk about. So anyway, it's everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good week, and we look forward to catching up with you next week. Take care, everybody.